Hello, everyone. Busy week. I'm coming back from vacation last week, so hope everybody had a good couple weeks. And as always, when you come back from vacation, it's just a nightmare trying to get caught up. So literally back-to-back meetings pretty much the entire week here. So, and this morning on a Friday, I don't know why I opened up my calendar for Friday mornings, but I did. So, there was one thing that I was prepared to walk through today that I wanted to share with the group. But before I do so, let's just open it up for questions. Like I said, we've been away for a couple of weeks. So if anybody has anything that they need help with or that they wanted to talk through, we'll open it up. Any questions that anyone would like to walk through?
Hey, Bill, it's not necessarily a technical question and it's not a career question. It's a product question.
Yeah.
So I've been looking through, well, we have our own implementation here in the Air Force, right? And it's just not pure service cloud. Like so is public sector cloud and government cloud, are they portions of other clouds, or is that like a marketing wrap around or something like that? Can you actually go, does it have its own features?
Yeah. So before I give my somewhat less educated answer to that question, does anybody work currently with government cloud, public sector cloud that can kind of speak to that? Okay, so I'll give you my take on this. And then again, maybe the best thing is we try to find some resources that we can share with you. But from what I understand, when we talk about something like government cloud, my understanding is that it has all the same features and functionality, like the platform features, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. It's just that the government cloud is actually a different instance with in a different Salesforce data center with a different set of security, and it's in the US and things like that. So that's my understanding. I think it's basically just a kind of a mashup of all the other clouds that's hosted in a different way that they can actually, get the whatever certifications they need from a security perspective. I think there's some other things that are in there as far as like different types of encryption that are enabled, like encryption, shield platform encryption and things. I think some of that might come default with government cloud. But again, it's just not one of those things that I work with on a regular basis that I have a lot of hands-on experience with. Yeah, and I think when you think of some of the other clouds too, like they have health cloud or consumer cloud and all these other kind of things that are out there. I do think that they do have some different maybe objects and things that are built out of the box. But generally speaking, they're all pretty much built around the same, like when you think of service cloud, like cases and things like that, all that stuff is still going to be in there. It just might have a slightly different, additional set of objects that might be specific, like to manufacturing or to, whatever it is. I feel like there's too many clouds now to keep track of them all. But yeah, hope that helps. But yeah, I just don't have a lot of experience there.
Yeah, thanks for humoring my product question instead of technical.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have anything to add to that? And maybe if not, we can open it back up to questions. And if there's no questions, I can open it back up to what I was somewhat less prepared than I would like to be to walk you guys through today. So any other questions?
I've got a question.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that I'm going to articulate it the way it's very fresh on my mind, but we have a report that pulls total hours from a contact's record. Well, it shows up. Sorry, this is so confusing. Basically, what we need is to pull hours from the contact record that is pulling other records, time tracking records from two other records. So, and we need to be able to, like on a contact record, there is these time tracking records that some will be for July, some August.
Yeah.
And when we go to report on it, it's pulling the total of all of those hours. But we want to be able to exclude August, for example, and only pull hours for July. I know
Yeah.
you can filter, but would this be a joined report? Or
So I happen to have a lot of experience when it comes to building reports based on time tracking records, because that's like my bread and butter with our application. Where essentially you're adding time records, for various dates, and then you just want to build a report and you want to be able to just show the ones for this month or just the ones for next month. Is that kind of what you're getting to?
yes.
What's the app that you're using for the tracking time?
I don't know.
Well, that's less important, but to actually answer your question, the way I would kind of envision this, not necessarily a joiner report, but if you think about the relationships, and this is what you have to think about, the relationships between the objects, right? If you have the contact object, which then has like some assignment records under that, and then under that is the actual time records, right? Where you actually want to do the reporting. Essentially, what you would need to create is a custom report type. So the custom report type would be contacts with assignments with time tracking records. And then all three of those objects would be available for you to pull in the report. And then you'd be able to group it by contact and then, filter it where it's just the time entries that have a date that are within the current month or something like that. If it's something that, does that get you close to what you were thinking, or?
We already have contacts with service engagements and referrals. So we're already working on 3 objects. That's
Yeah.
why I was thinking if we had to do a joined report for that 4th, we need
I
the
think
time.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can do it up to 4.
Oh, okay.
Let me just take a look here, because now I'm going to say that and it's not going to be true, but I'll take a look and I'll actually share my screen here and we can take a look at this.
Okay.
So, okay. Yeah, I think, 4. So in my example, if I look in my, if my demo org will log in here, if it doesn't work, I'm going to blame Danica, who's on the call, because I think she created this org. Here we go. So let's see. Okay, so I'm logged into my org. And you think about our data model, we have, let's just say, accounts with opportunities, with resource assignments, with time tracking. So 4 different layers of objects, right? So in theory, if we go into our setup and we go to our custom report types, and this basically, for those that might not be familiar, custom report types, it basically allows you to create report types that will show up when you create a new report that connect to different objects, right? Different related objects, I should say. So if we go here to report types, and we had 4 different layers that we were looking to do, and this is where I might eat my words, but I'm fairly certain you can do 4 here. Let's just say we pick our top level. So my example, it's going to be accounts. So I'm going to call this accounts with ops and RH data. RH is just my app, resource hero. So I'm just going to create that. And I've never known anybody to do in development. So we'll just change that to deployed. And this is the key screen. This is where we get to figure out what objects we want to display on our custom report type. So in theory, I should be able to select opportunities because they're related to accounts. And then underneath opportunities, I should be able to select resource assignments. And then under resource assignments, I can select the 4th object, which is resource forecasts. So 4 levels, you should be able to do that. Assuming that one of these levels has the actual date field that you're trying to get to, if you create the report type that includes that, you should be able to then filter out, just show me the stuff from July or just show me the stuff from August.
Okay.
Maybe.
I'm glad to know you can have the 4th object there. I wasn't aware of that, but I think I need more clarity on if I'm even asking this question right. So I might send you a message later. I'm sorry to take up all the time, but it's just a bit confusing.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to, if you want to send me a note, if you want to jump on something, it's tough when you have to ask a question, not only to actually ask the question from a technical standpoint, but only share enough that you're not giving away like proprietary information or sharing like something, secret squirrel stuff. So I get it. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so.
Thank you.
Just as a general question, anybody on the call have questions when it comes to the report types? A lot of times when you're working, starting on Salesforce, you kind of use the built-in report types to get created for you. So does anybody have any questions on that piece, the custom report types, or what they're used for, or why you would even need to create one? All right, great. All right, so let's yeah, go
Hi,
ahead.
Gail. This is Pearl.
Hey, Pearl.
Why not you just quickly go through the key points of report type?
Yeah, sure. So the key thing to keep in mind here, and I'll share my screen here. The key thing is that when you create, and how can I visualize this? When you have two objects in Salesforce, like let's just say you create a custom project object and you create another custom object called project details, right? You create those two objects, and the project detail has a relationship. You create a lookup field from project detail to project. Just for the fact that you created that relationship field, Salesforce is automatically going to create a report type for you called projects with project detail, right? So it'll do that for you just for the fact that you created a relationship. Now, when you think about more complex use case where you have projects and project detail, but your project also looks up to the account object, Salesforce is going to create accounts with projects, and it's going to create projects with project detail. But if you want to create a report that includes fields from all three of those objects, where you want to get accounts with project detail, Salesforce doesn't know to create that, or it can't create that because if it had to create every combination of report type, even if you didn't ask for it, you can imagine how that list can get pretty huge based on all the relationships you have. So in that scenario, that's where you need to create a custom report type like you see here. So if you want to, traverse a relationship between your project detail and the project details above it and the account details above that, that's where you would create, the custom report type. And just to kind of simplify this a little bit, we'll just show three here. In this case, it's going to show all accounts with opportunities with resource assignments. And if you look at that's a Venn diagram, right? I haven't looked at these in a long time. Yeah, Venn diagram is what it is. So it's basically where they all match up. So you have to have an account, and it has to have opportunities, and that has to have resource assignments. And that's the data that's going to be returned by your report. Now you might say, show me all the accounts and all the opportunities that have opportunities, but I want to show all the opportunities whether or not they have assignments. So that's where we would check this box here. And now you can see it's going to show all the accounts with opportunities, whether or not they have resource assignments or not. So it's going to show everything. Same thing if we go up further, you can see where we can show all accounts, whether or not they have opportunities and whether or not they have resource assignments. So, depending on the use case, you might want to make sure it's inclusive, or, you show it whether it has it or not. So it really just depends. Good example of that is, like I said, when we do something in here, I'm already here, so I might as well just show it to you. But if we were looking at a report type where I generate resource utilization data, right? I'm showing resources with assignments with resource forecast information. Well, you might have a brand new resource that just started yesterday. They have no assignments, they have no forecast information, but you still want them to show up in this report as a 0 across the board because they're a person that's working for the company. So I need to show that 0, whether or not we've planned them to work on anything or not. So that's where the report type, show me all the resources, whether or not they have assignments, with or without assignments, with or without forecasts. That's where that comes into play. I want to show that resource no matter if they have data or not associated to them. So I hope that answers the question as a very quick overview on report types and why you might need to create them and what would be a use case where you would use that with or without. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on that? Or I guess we'll open it back up to any questions in general.
Sure. I have hopefully a quick question.
Sure. What do you got, Sandy?
When you're doing the stuff on the mobile app, if you have like a customized icon for the actual app that you're adding to the app launcher, is there no way to get that to show up on the mobile app?
It's a great question. Do you have this set up in a way that you could share, or should I just try to create it real quick on the fly here?
Let me see if I can do a screen share. It's been a little bit. I don't remember how to do it, but I know I can.
Well, all right. So let me just take a step back. So you have you're creating an app that you're going to make available for mobile, and you want to add various tabs to that, or
So we have the app, like basically our main customized app,
Yep.
With our logo next to it, so that when you're on the desktop, you see our little logo next to
Yep.
the port and starboard.
Yep.
But when I made it available on the mobile app, it's just showing the little cloud.
so you don't get to see your custom icon. All right. So let me see if I can share my screen here, and let's try to walk through that real quick.
I was went through like the branding and all that kind of stuff that you could do on the mobile app, but all it did was add like a little, landing page and customize the colors, but the actual icon for the app itself does not seem to.
All right. So I believe you're talking about this here, where if we went into let me see if I have a custom one here. So RH demo in our app manager. So when you create a new app in Salesforce, and again, for those that are kind of new to this, when we talk about creating an app in Salesforce, really what that is like these options here, where like I have the RH demo app, and that contains just a set of tabs that are going to be at the top. Whereas if I switch to the sales app, which I don't even have displayed here in this org, but if you had a sales app, that might be a different collection of tabs, like accounts, opportunities, and price books or something like that. So in this case, I'm looking at this RH demo app that we have here. And in setup, if you go to app manager and then click edit next to that, this is where we're talking about like creating the custom branding. Like in this case, we have the Resource Hero logo. And if we look back here, it's kind of lame looking now that I'm actually focusing on it, but we could probably do something to improve that. But yeah, that's the image that's going to display in the top of your page. Now, what you're saying, Sandy, is that when you go into the Salesforce mobile app and you look at this exact same app, you're seeing just a generic Salesforce cloud, and you're not seeing the actual custom icon that you put there.
Correct.
So I'm going to open up my app here, my Salesforce mobile app, which let's see. And again, for those that don't know, if you have Salesforce, you automatically get access to the Salesforce mobile app. There's a little bit of setup you have to do, configuration, but it's not like there's an additional cost to the mobile app. So if you've never messed around with the Salesforce mobile app, it's definitely something worthwhile to do. Okay, so I'm looking at, so when you go to your app launcher, now see, I do see my custom icons. Is it the icon for the app itself, or is it the individual tabs that you're not seeing the icon for?
For the app itself.
Okay, so I don't know. This is going to seem really lame. I'm sure I can log into Zoom from my phone and then share my screen, but I'm going to hold this up to the camera. Let's see if this works. So this is actually my dev environment where I've created a bunch of things, and you can see like, is it even possible? You're not gonna be able to see it. Yeah. So
blurry, but I see colors at least.
Yeah. So I have like, for example, I have a couple apps in here. I have one for Recipe Hero, which is an app I created for my wife to keep track of recipes. And I have one for Brew Hero where I keep track of wine brewing. And for each of those, like the wine brewing one, I have a little grapes icon, and that does show up when I go to the app launcher. I can see the little grapes icon. So what I'm wondering is, I wonder if the type of image that you're using might impact whether or not it shows up in mobile. I have no clue, and we can Google this and figure it out. But like, I'm wondering, could PNGs versus JPEGs versus GIF or something have any impact whether it would show through the browser versus show up through the mobile app? The other thing, I guess, let's just take a look here.
I've definitely done a lot of Google searching.
Yeah, and I guess supported form factors. I'm assuming you have this set up for desktop and phone.
Yeah, I suppose I should go to it just to make sure that
the
stuff that I have matches what you got.
Yeah, so I think it has to be maybe something with the images, because I know, like I said, I have it set up in mine and it's showing up through the mobile app. So I gotta imagine it's got to be something with the image file. Anybody else have any experience or worked with custom apps on mobile and run into this issue before? I'll be honest, I know a lot of people that use Salesforce. I don't know too many that actually use the Salesforce mobile app.
I set up my mobile app because I have a dev org and an app to manage my military transition.
Yeah.
And I could see the photo, that I brought over. And it was even just like an iPhone photo. Even those are weird and other uses
Yeah.
and all that. And it works.
All right, let me see.
I have no idea what I'm doing wrong then. No, the cool part is during my research, I found that you can add like all the branding and stuff. So like while it's loading, I can see a giant logo in the background and changing the color so that it matches your org and all that kind of stuff. But the
Yeah.
actual icon thing, I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, let me just take a look. I'm gonna see if I can get into the actual dev org where I have this thing set up. Give me one sec here. Let's see. My password manager is failing me right now. Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to log in. I'll have to figure it out, but it is working for me. So I think the images might be where I would start just to make sure that's the particular format. And just for fun here, if I do Salesforce mobile app icon issue, see what that comes up. Icon's not changing.
Sometimes.
Oh, here's a great question. When did you change the icons? Was it like, did you notice them that they looked lame on the mobile, and then you were like, let me change and put custom icons or custom icon for the app, and then it wasn't showing up like right after you did that?
No, this was stuff that was already set up.
Okay.
I just changed it from desktop only to also being active on the mobile app.
Okay. So something to consider. I don't know. Again, and Dan, I see you just put a link there. We can take a look at that. But the other thing too is when you're making changes, and I only have experience with this when it comes to development, like Lightning web components and things like that. But there's a setting in the app itself where it's like it allows you to reload the app cache or something like that. So I'm wondering if it was there, you were looking at it and you didn't have the icon set, or it didn't set up for mobile, and then you made that change, and then you're looking to see if it displays it now. You might have to reset that cache for it to be visible. Again, I'm not basing that in any fact that I found, but that could be something to look at.
It wasn't even visible, like the app itself wasn't visible at all on mobile. So I didn't make any changes to the image because the image was something that already existed as part of it. That's why I just made sure that app was available on the mobile app as well.
Yeah.
But there's also a different app that I have as well. And that, like, all of the things that are available on the app launcher just show the little clouds. So like none of them have their custom icon.
Yeah. As far as app manager, is that something that you could share or no?
Maybe, I think so.
Yeah.
It's just our picture, so.
If you need to, I can stop recording if okay, so that's the image that you wanted to show, that squiggly guy there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And if you go to the app options tab there. Okay, desktop and phone, good.
Yeah, that was pretty much the only change I made because it was on just desktop. And
all right, so let me ask you, Kyle, you've posted a few links here. What was that one you just posted there?
It's just a emulator for the actual phone itself. So you can just install that on the computer. You don't have to use your phone to see back and forth updates. It's on the developer website. There's also a YouTube video from Salesforce developers on how to do it.
Unbelievable. Yeah, because there used to be a way, if you just did like the developer console in Chrome, you could, if you change it to like an iPhone, it would just be in the mobile app, but I think they turned that off or something. So yeah, this is perfect. Here, let me just share my screen real quick.
It may not solve your problem, Sandy, but it gives you something to test with, so you don't have to use your personal phone.
Now, if anybody's cool, I was going to say, and using Android instead of iOS, I'm assuming they have an option there for that. So let's see this one. Okay, yeah, so cool. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Add that to my bookmarks. Okay. Sandy, so I think the answer is I'm not sure. I might start with that caching thing, but I do know that if you have custom icons, they should be displaying through the mobile app.
Okay.
That much we proved. So I have to feel like it's either something to do with the image file itself, or just caching on your phone that you might just need to reset it so that it pulls like I don't know. You said you didn't change the icon; it's always been there. So I can't imagine it's like new in that regards. But you know, maybe it had pulled something about the app metadata. You enabled it for phone, so it's being displayed. I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but image files is where I'm thinking that if I had to guess.
Okay.
Dan, I think you had posted something here too. Is there anything you wanted to kind of speak to?
No, it's nothing earth shattering. It's just the basic, look for this and this and this, from Salesforce. It's yeah. I haven't really
Okay.
gone through it, but it seems like there's a couple things to check on.
Okay.
That I did. I did find that, and that's the branding where you can add the various things to like when I actually click on something within that custom app, it will show that branding specifically. So like as stuff loads in the mobile app, I can see that little ampersand that we have in the background while whatever stuff is loading. That's where it changes like to if you have specific colors for your org and all that kind of stuff. That was what that part of the branding was doing. So I was able to do that, and that is working. And that was kind of cool that I accidentally stumbled on while I was trying to solve the other issue. But
Tina, you're using iOS or Android?
I have iOS.
Okay, so this might be relevant then. I'm not sure what version. I don't know when this was last updated yesterday. I'm not sure when this was actually reported, but this could be something too. So app icon image not rendering using iOS app version, whatever later. So custom app icon image not rendering on the menu tab. So it could be a known issue that maybe it was a regression as part of the latest release or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least
So
then I know I'm not crazy. If that's
yeah.
the
So
case.
as far as a workaround, they don't have anything listed here, but maybe upgrading to Android would be the better option here. So
Well, if you want to buy me one, I'll take it. But right now, I got no payment on my phones at all. They're completely
yeah,
paid off. We're
I'm
good.
rocking the 3.5-year-old Android phone, so I don't do the new phone thing. Yeah, no, that's cool. I think so. It might be a known issue, so definitely checking that.
Okay.
Maybe something to look at would be the emulators that were posted here. This is new to me, so I'm going to check this out as well. But it'd be kind of cool to see if you have the iOS emulator, if you can reproduce your error, and then if you look at the Android emulator and you don't see the error, that might prove that it is in fact related to this known issue.
Okay.
If used, and that's not to say that it's guaranteed, because the emulator might be completely different than the issue that's causing the problem on actual iOS, right? It's never like apples to apples. Emulator is exactly what you're going to find on the phone, but it might get you close. And if you could replicate it, at least that'll kind of tell you what, you're on the right track, that it's not you, it's something wrong with the iOS app.
Right.
Very cool. Any other questions there?
Well, I kind of have, well, it's not kind of, it's a sort of a question. Just troubleshooting. I'm all super new to this, but it would seem, here's my question, Sandy. Is anybody else having the problem, or is it just you?
Honestly, I haven't really checked, just because it was kind of it was just one of those minor tasks. Hey, I see that our main app is not available in the mobile app. Can we please make it available? And then I just started playing around and stuff like that. So that was really just me, but yeah, no, I have not checked to see if anybody else has that issue.
Yeah, that's just from the troubleshooting thoughts. That would be a place to go to.
Yeah, I'm with Bill. Sandy, I hate saying this, but I worked at Apple for 8 years at the Genius Bar. So I would test it on the computer through the emulator.
Okay.
And if you don't have that problem on the emulator, it may be just your device. And so uninstall, reinstall that app.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think this really depends on the type of company that you work for too. Working for like a small, medium-sized company versus like an enterprise. Like I worked at Bank of America, and I know just from a testing perspective, or just from the teams that are responsible for managing Salesforce, for example, if they have the resources, and if depending on your release management cycle, sometimes just asking the company like, hey, can we get a test device. We know that half of our users use an Android, half are using iOS. Could we just get 2 devices that we can use just for testing whenever we're pushing out changes? Enterprise, they might go for that because they want to make sure you're not impacting 100,000 users. When you have like a 30-member team, they might not want to, it would be harder to justify the cost of, getting 2 devices for that, but might be worth asking the question. Maybe they can foot the bill just to give you the devices for testing,
I definitely think we're more in that smaller category.
Yeah. Yeah. So emulators definitely would be the way to go in that case. Okay, cool. Anything else? Any other questions there? Good, Steve.
So I have a client who has a custom object. They've got about 30,000 records in it. They've suddenly decided that they need another field, and we've built a flow to calculate what the default value should be. They can overwrite it, and that's fine. So that's all work. But the problem is I got 30,000 records out there that don't have those values in there.
Yeah.
So I decided to create a flow that I just made it a screen flow so that I can manually run it. And I've tried to be very good about bulkifying it so that I'm doing one get of all the records. I'm looping through them and just assigning new values to the individual records. And then finally, once I'm done with all the looping, then I'm committing the changes back to the database.
Yeah.
Okay. So the problem though is that I'm running into, it runs for a couple of minutes and then it finally comes back and says, you've exceeded the, yeah. Can you tell me what's going on? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, definitely. So this is definitely here, let me share my screen. And the first place I usually go for this kind of thing, I'm going to go to, I don't have the page bookmarked, but if I just do Salesforce flow limits, I think the limits, there's 2 limits that I think you're going to be running into. One is the time that any single transaction is allowed to take. So, how long you're allowed to be using Salesforce resources in that transaction before it's going to cut out. And then this is usually the one that most folks run into, the executed elements at runtime per flow, right? So you say if you have 30,000 records, and in your flow, you're getting the values. Are you looping through them? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, and then you're doing like an update element after that. So if you think about it, if you have a loop with just one assignment block in there where you're setting the value to what you want it to be, that in and of itself, 30,000, you're going to blow through that 2,000 limit just from the loop, right? So that can be an issue. So what I might suggest is the value the same for every record, or do you have to do some kind of calculation and then populate it?
Yeah, it's calculated.
Okay, so a couple things that I think that you might be able to do. One is it an option to export that data, make the updates in like Excel, and then use data loader or something to re-import them and update?
Yeah, the only problem is that the formula is kind of complex, and trying to do that in Excel isn't really easy. I can take the time and probably do it in, VB, so, in Excel, but it's probably going to be my only option at this point.
Maybe not. So here's the other thing you can do. All right. So you mentioned, which I think is great. I probably would have started out with like a scheduled flow, and that sucks because it's scheduled. You have to run it, and then it just kind of happens behind the scenes, right? You decided to go with the screen-based flow, which means you have a lot more options here, right? So what you could do, imagine this for a minute. In your screen-based flow, imagine if you created a variable called iteration count that you set to 0, right? Your logic that you have here, you're gonna get your records, you're gonna start iterating through them. Every time you go through and do a single record and calculate whatever it's supposed to be, you have another assignment block in there that increments your counter by 1, right? And in your logic, you have a decision block that says if the counter is less than 200 or less than 1,000, whatever it is, go ahead and execute. Otherwise, stop. So in other words, You can make it so that when you hit yes, start calculating, it'll do 1,000 at a time and then pause, which resets all your transaction limits, resets all the counters, and then you hit continue and it does the next 1,000 and then it stops and then you keep going. Now, if you had like 4 million records, hitting start and stop every 1,000 might be a challenge, but if you only have 30,000, that's 30 times. You could probably knock that out within 5 minutes, right? So that might be one way to go. A couple of things I might suggest there is that using that counter, using that in conjunction with the decision block. And then the other key thing is that you don't want to keep getting the same records that you've already updated. So in your get records thing in there, you probably want to just get records where that value is null or it's zero, whatever like uncalculated looks like. You want to make sure you're excluding the ones that have been calculated. But that might be a way to do it. Screen-based flow, put in some kind of control where it limits the number of records that are being executed in any given time. And then just kind of deal with having to click next, 30 or 60 times.
That's a lot better than trying to have it do it manually or to, try and do something outside in Excel. So
yeah.
No,
the other option you have, and probably if I had to do anything, and I'm just looking at her profile picture, Danica's on the call. We've gone through this a few times. Flow is definitely a way to go. But if I had to do this, it would probably be an anonymous Apex that I would do through Developer Console. You could do the exact same thing, whatever logic that you're doing in your flow. You could do that same type of calculation. And then you can even in your get, give me all the records that need to be updated, where the value that I'm trying to set has not been set yet. Limit 2,000, right? So it's only going to grab 2,000 records. It'll execute through those. And same thing applies. You would just run that same anonymous Apex 15 times or 30 times, just like you would run through your screen-based flow, that number of times. But I love the flow option because it gives you maximum control. You're not writing code. You can test things, one record at a time if you wanted to. I think that's a good way to go.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I see Greg has his hand up. I think what we can do is we'll go through. If there's any other questions, we'll absolutely go through those. If we run out of time or if we still have time and nobody has any other questions, I'd be happy to kind of build what that flow would look like, for everybody's benefit. But Greg, what do you got? Question?
I have an account that has sharing settings equal to private, and I want to programmatically make an account available for everybody through sharing rules or is it programmatically? Can I, through a trigger, make that account shareable with everybody?
Yeah. So let me say that back to you. So you have, by default, your sharing settings for accounts is set to private. So people can only see what they own or what people own below them in the hierarchy, right? But in some circumstances, you have an account that through some kind of criteria, that one account should be made available to everyone.
Right.
Okay. Again, just like anything else in Salesforce, there's probably 15 different ways we can do this, but one way that you could do it is through, let me think through this. Do these accounts have some kind of name associated to them, like public accounts or everybody should see accounts, or is there some kind of nomenclature that you guys use to determine that these are like, that should be seen by everybody?
Based on business logic, it could be a parent account. It could be a corporate. Some corporations own multiple subsidiaries, so they want to make somehow make a determined account to be public.
Okay.
So that everybody can see it.
Okay, and that would be programmatically or in some cases manual as well?
Preferred programmatically through business logic.
Okay, so what I could suggest is one option. You imagine a world where you have a checkbox field that's created on accounts called public account. And if it's true, everybody should see that account. And if it's false, default back to the private sharing model, right? If you created a checkbox like that, I'm wondering if you can create a criteria-based sharing rule that basically says that share every account where that field is equal to true and share it with the roles and subordinates of the top of your role hierarchy. So essentially make it public. That might be one way. Now, I've said that and I went through it very quick. Does that make sense? And if it does, maybe I can just show a quick example of how we might do that.
Well, I can research it. What did you call it again?
Yeah, so it's going to be a criteria-based sharing rule. And here, let me I'm gonna show this real quick. Let's see if I can actually log in this time.
Okay, I've got it on Google.
Yeah, and here I'll just show it in the app as well.
All right.
Unfortunately, I got to go through the 15
I want
layers
to
of
take up everyone's
authentication.
time. You just
That's
gave
what
me
we're
some-
here for. Yeah, that's what we're here for. So let's see. This is actually a really good one. I think this is I do believe that they talk about sharing rules and whatnot on the admin exam. So I think for the group, this is a pretty good one. So let's do this. I'm going to share my screen. This is my trailhead. Let's go to hands-on orgs. Are you kidding me? What's going on here? All right, I'm not going to dork around with that. I'm already in my demo org, so let's just do that. All right, so what I was going to mention here is that if you go in the setup in Salesforce, the place where you can see your default sharing for all your objects is in sharing settings, right? So when I go to sharing settings in your scenario, and I'm not going to make any changes here because I don't want to impact our demo org that I'm working in. But right here, you have this set to private, which would
Yeah.
mean that, again, folks would only see their stuff or the stuff that's below them in the hierarchy or stuff that's been explicitly shared to them. But what you could do, you can scroll all the way down, or you could just go here and select the account object. And when you do that, you'll notice that we have our account sharing rules here, right? Now, let me just see if I can find a field that we can use. Do I have any checkbox fields on the account? And we'll just pretend that is what we're trying to do here. So if I go to Object Manager, let's go to Account. Of course, it was the first one on the list. There we go. All right, so if I sort this by data type, do I have any checkboxes here? No. So let's just pretend that, let's just use the rating field. And actually, you know what? Let's go with the checkbox option. Let's just create one. I don't think this should impact anything here. So let's call this public account. By default, it's going to be unchecked. And let's just say you have some logic in place that's going to automatically check this box based on some kind of business logic, right? You're doing it with flow, you're doing it with a trigger or batch apex, whatever it is, some mechanism is going to come through and check that public account checkbox. Now, from a sharing perspective, and this is the part where I said in theory, because I haven't done this in a long time, but in theory, we should be able to come in here and say, share public accounts with everyone. We're going to make this so two types of sharing rules, right? You have one, which is based on the record owner, and we can say, find me all the accounts that are owned by a particular group, and I want to share them with another group, right? So that's one way we do it based on groups. I believe because I have mine set to public read write, I don't see the options here, but there should be other options in here for roles and subordinates, things like that. So basically, based on the owner of the person, what role they're in or what public group they're in, we're going to create some kind of sharing. That's one type of sharing rule. The other type of sharing rule would be based on criteria. And this is where we can say, find me the accounts that match this criteria. And when you find them, share them with this group of people or this role and subordinates. So in this case, we might say, and this is where I hope I see it here. Okay, there we go. So public account, find me all the account records where the public account checkbox is equal to true. And when you find those, we're going to share it with everybody. And again, all internal users. I want to share that with all internal users. And then you can even set the level of access that they're going to get. So for accounts and contacts, I want to make it, read write, and I want to keep the opportunities and cases private. But that would be one way that based on some kind of criteria of the account, whether it's a checkbox or some other kind of, pick list field you got, whatever it is, to say just these accounts that meet this criteria, share them with these people with this level of access.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. And like I said, with Salesforce, there's a tons of different ways you can do each thing. So that would be one mechanism, using sharing rules. There's a whole other thing that we could talk about with like Apex based sharing, and you could create manual shares using automation. There's a ton of different things you can do, but I think that might be the cleanest based on what you described. That might be a very simple, clean way to do it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So any other questions, whether it's on what we just covered or just in general, that anyone would like to walk through? All right. Hearing none. Steve, what do you think? Should I try to do that quick flow just to kind of that? I'm assuming that was yes, Bill. That would be awesome. You're on mute, but I think I've read your lips there.
You
All right.
do a very good job of lip reading.
Now, see, the thing is, I don't know if I can. For some reason, I can't get into any of my Trailhead works. Let me see if I can try to log in one more time. And if I can, what I'll do is I'll just log into a Scratch org. But while I'm fumbling around this, I'll just open it back up. Any other question that anybody would like while I'm trying to log in? All right. Looks like I was able to get in. Let's see, hands-on org. Now I keep getting 404. Is anybody else able to get into Trailhead and actually go to like their hands-on orgs? Because I keep it's letting me log in, but then it goes right to a 404. Can't find a message. All right. In any case, let's just do this in a different org then. I wonder if there's some issue going on right now. All right, so we'll just go with
I
our.
was able to log in.
You're able to log in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Like this is what I keep being taken to, which is kind of cool. I've never seen that airplane. It's kind of nice. I just don't know why I can't log in and why I can't get to my Trailhead orgs. Weird stuff is like this has been happening all day, and my bill for Salesforce is due, but I had to have changes made to it. I'm working with my account executive, but today's the day. I've been trying to get it done for like 3 weeks, but now I'm getting paranoid. Like, did they shut off my access? Do they turn off my certifications? Like, what's going on here?
You're probably blacklisted. I think.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. No wonder. All right, we'll give it one last try, and then I'll jump over and we'll do it in this other org. Oh, there we go. So it's working now. All right, so let's go in here and bump that over to there. Okay. All right. So basically, we want to design a flow which would allow us to mass update records. If we had 30,000 of them, we just want to do it in manageable little packets, right? So what I'm going to do is, I don't know if I have any accounts that need to be updated, but I'm just going to create this and we're just going to use the account object just because it's there. We don't have to fumble around creating a new custom object. Actually, I'll do this on, I shouldn't do it on opportunities because then I will break my demo org. But yeah, let's just do it on accounts. All right. So if we go into a flow and we created a new flow, this is going to be a screen-based flow, which I think is perfect. And first thing I'm going to do is create a new screen here. And we're going to say, I'm just going to put a message on here like, see, naming conventions always get me. Go forward message. And then in that message, I'm going to put something like, do you want to process the first batch of records? Question mark. Okay. And then in the thing itself, I'm going to call this go forward screen. And in the footer, I'm only going to show the next button. We're going to hide the previous and we're going to hide pause. And that's it. So just by creating that screen, and I'm going to save this here. I will call this batch processing flow. And if we do that and I run this now, this is what we're presented with. We just have our basic screen that says, do you want to process the first batch of records? And we have a finish button, which is kind of silly. So if we go back into that screen, just very quickly, I'm going to use a custom label and I'm going to say, yes, process the batch. All right, so that's what the button will say. Now, what do we want to do here? So if we click yes, I want to process, first thing I want to do is get my accounts that we're going to update. Now, Steve, you mentioned that in your use case, you need to get the records, and then for each record, it's going to be some custom calculation. It's not just going to be setting a value that's going to be the same for each of them. If it was, I might suggest we don't do a get records at all, and we just do an update record, and we could just update all the records that match our criteria, set the value to X, and move forward. But if you have to do some custom calculation for each one of them, that's where the get records is going to make sense. So we're going to call this get accounts to be processed, and the object is going to be the account object. We could put some criteria. So find me all the accounts where the annual revenue is, what do we want to say? Not equal to, or less than or equal to 0. I don't know. So basically anywhere where we haven't set in an annual revenue yet, that's the thing that we're going to calculate. And we want to get all the records. All right. So we first get them. And then this is where we would add our loop. So we're going to say for each account, makes sense to me. And this is going to be the accounts that we just got. We're going to loop through them. And for each one of them, we're going to put an assignment block here. And just to keep things simple, do the calculation, whatever. So this could be a direct assignment where we're setting a field equal to something. The thing we set it equal to could be a number. It could be a formula field. It could be the result of some other kind of lookup. Whatever it is, just for now, we're going to keep it simple. And I'm going to say it's the current item for my loop. So this represents whatever account that I'm currently looking at. And I'm going to set the annual revenue field equal to, and again, for simplicity, we're going to say 250,000. It's really bad. I'm going to destroy a bunch of data. I know for sure here. So we have our screen. We get our accounts, we loop through them, we set the value equal to something. And then the counterpart, that's the piece where we want to make sure we're not doing too much at any given time, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new resource, and I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, iteration count, right? And this is going to be a number, and it's going to have 0 decimal places, and we're going to default that value to 0. Right. So what I can do is we can say we ask them if they want to continue. We get the records, and then I'm just going to throw a thing in here that's going to reset our variable. So reset counter. I'm going to set my iteration count equal to 0. Right. So we do that in the beginning. We start our loop where it's going to start going through. And when we do our calculation, I can either put it here or we can have another assignment block. But in any case, we can go to iteration count. We can add 1 to it every time. All right. So we're going to increment it every time we go through, but then we also need to have some kind of check to see, is the count currently 200 or is it less than 200? And if it is, we can break out of our loop. We can update the records. We can do what we need to do. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to create a decision block that sets this to, is the iteration less than 200 ? And then for this, yes, it is. This is going to be no, it is not. And for the yes, it is, this is going to be where iteration is less than 200. Okay. And if it is, and this is where I usually make mistakes, I got to switch to free form. So let's clean this up a little bit. So we are going to have our screen. Do you want to move forward? We're going to get our account records. We're going to make sure that our iteration is set to 0, even though that was our default value. We're going to reset it here. And then we're going to start looping through our records. And what I want to do, I think this is where I made my mistake. And I'm just going to delete all these. So for each thing, we're going to check to see if we're less than 200. So for each item, we're going to check to see if we're less than 200. If we are, we're going to go to here where we're going to do our assignment. And then we're going to loop back to the beginning. So basically it's going to, for each item, it's going to check are we less than 200. If we are, it's going to do whatever we need to do in the assignment and then go back to the beginning. So the theory is that if it is, it's going to keep going through the loop. But if it's not, that's when we want to bounce it back to like the actual update records element that we would put here to actually do the update. And then once the update's done, then we send it back to the screen, right? And I'm looking at the time here. We got like 2 minutes left, and I want to see what I can get done here. But I think what we would need to do, we're going to add another thing here, which is a variable, and this is counts for update. This is going to be a record of type account. So basically, for each time we go through our loop, we are going to set the value to what we wanted to, and then we're going to add that current item to our accounts for update. So we're going to add the current item from the loop. All right. So in other words, for every single one that we have, we're going to loop through. We're going to check to see if we're less than 200. We're going to make the update that we need, increment our counter, add it to a collection for update. And then in the end, once we're all done, we're going to go over here and we're going to update the accounts. And this is going to use the collection that we just created. So accounts for update. So if it is not less than 200, we send it over to the update records, and then we go back to our screen. So this looks very ugly, but just to kind of talk through this, we start off, are you ready to get started? Yes, we get the records that we need. We reset our counter. In our counter reset, we would also probably want to do counts for update is equal to null. I think that's a thing that we can do, basically reset our collection. Then we start looping through each item. For each item, we check to see if our counter is less than 200. If it is, we do all of our calculations. We increment our counter. We add it to the list for update. We go to the next one. So we keep looping through our records. Eventually, we get to a point where the iteration is not less than 200. And in that case, we update the records that we've already processed, and then we go back to our screen to say, do you want to move to the next one? So this is a very quick way to go through this, but essentially, Steve, that's what you're looking to do. Whatever current flow that you have, you put in that mechanism where you can only process 1,000 at a time, and then it restarts the process every time. So that would be one way to do it.
Awesome.
All right. So I know we went through that very quickly. We went through a lot of stuff very quickly. If anybody has any kind of questions, you can always reach out to me. I'll put my email address here in the chat. And of course, we'll have office hours next week, but yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And Sandy, I think we need to do like a bring your pet to office hours day. Megan, I saw your dog in the background too. I'm very jealous of people's
She
pets.
heard you doing flows and she had to come over.
There you go. All right. Well, listen, everybody, hope you have a great weekend. And we'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Bill. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.